That is enough of that.
Oh, you muddy fugglers, get in here, sit down, we're going to read some news. You hear a lot about OpenAI, about Grok, about Claude, Meta, all these big players in the AI world. How about the open source AI development scene? How's that coming along? And should we be concerned? Is there any reason for us to trust these big corporations more than the grassroots AI development? I don't know. But on this article from TechCrunch, written by Tim Fernholz, OpenAI is scared of open weight models. Should the US be? Potentially. Freeware and shareware has been banging around the internet since its beginnings, so it's not gone away, and I don't think this is necessarily going to go away, but it might end up being regulated so much that it's a whisper compared to a bark with these bigger corporations. But let's read, shall we? The impressive capabilities of Chinese lab moonshot's Kimi K3, the biggest open-weight large language model, have kicked off a debate that conflates two things: the economic possibilities of American AI giants and the future of LLMs as a technology. OpenAI's head of strategic futures, Dean W. Ball, went so far as to argue that the US government should find a pretext to create regulatory fear, uncertainty, and distrust around the new models, since open-weight models must necessarily deter capital spending by the frontier labs. People freaked out, with tech luminaries like Yan LeCun and Martin Casado arguing that open software can accelerate innovation and coexist with proprietary projects. Much like Linux is actually been growing more and more prominent in the recent years. It's been around for ages, people like it. Usually those people are nerds, but now a lot of non-nerds are getting in on it. Ball soon retracted his claims that a regulatory crackdown was the White House's best strategy, and that open-weight models necessarily slow down advances in the technology. However, Axios reports that the Trump administration is considering banning K3 and other advanced Chinese models at the behest of the American frontier labs. Another report from Politico said that the Department of Commerce would not take that step anytime soon. The benefit of major AI companies is clear. Open-weight models running on independent infrastructure or inside major enterprises offer cheaper intelligence than Anthropic or OpenAI's class-leading models. If users increasingly spend more outside the closed labs, that means smaller returns on their massive investments in model training. It's true, that view extends far beyond OpenAI. Strong frontier-calibrated open-source models will place a squeeze on the margins that will bring down the prices of the frontier companies. Braden Hancock, the co-founder of Snorkel AI and a research partner at the Landau Institute, told TechCrunch, "It will not necessarily mean that the amount of AI usage goes down a little bit. Obviously quite the opposite. I suppose more people will use AI if it is cheap and more abundant, yeah. If you can't get away from it, that's not a problem for people without shares in Anthropic or OpenAI. AI will still proliferate. So what's the justification of the government to block Americans from purchasing something in our ostensibly free markets? A return in investment, I suppose, and control over those corporations. This is a national security issue, so I imagine that's the concern. Plus, it's a Chinese company's model. Concerns over Chinese models come in several flavors. One is protecting US data from the Chinese government. The US banned the import of modern Chinese EVs over concerns about their data gathering, but experts tend to think that open-weight models run on US servers are unlikely to leak data back to China, although it's not impossible that such a thing could be done. Another is that the models may have implicit biases towards the PRC, but it's not clear what that might mean for, say, coding tasks. I think a lot of these models have biases for China anyway. It's not uncommon to ask these models for a response that would be critical of China and not receive one that you expected. A third common worry is that Chinese models lack the guardrails that the US government has mandated through an opaque process, which aim to prevent leading US LLMs from being used to exploit closed computer systems or create weapons. However, those same guardrails may make US companies more vulnerable. David Sachs, the venture capitalist and Trump advisor, has been sharing cases of US companies turning to Chinese LLMs to close security gaps when US frontier models refuse to do the tasks. But the most significant motivation for restricting the models is fear that China will be able to outpace the US if the frontier labs shut down. Sam Bresnik, a China-focused research fellow, he's a good fellow that one, at Georgetown's Center for Security and Emerging Technology, says the growing importance of AI to the US military operations gives the US a reason to support continued investment in AI at frontier labs. But the whole question, he says, is fraught. Why should the weight of the US government be aimed at protecting these companies from competitors that are being locked out of the US market based on their origins? Bresnik asks. Well, it's national security, isn't it? It's IP. It's whether those technologies will be used against the US in some way. There's all sorts of reasons why you'd want to limit access. Advocates for OpenAI say that the frontier companies are creating a false binary between innovation and closed models. The bigger impact of having these open source models come from China is less that they are sneaking in back doors and more that they are owning the innovation. Hancock told TechCrunch. End up with effectively an expanded workforce on your model. PyTorch became the industry standard because it was open source, and so the whole community could contribute to it rather than just one company, and it grew and grew. And all the rest of the deep learning libraries kind of died in comparison. Hancock and other advocates fear that Chinese LLMs will become the locus of international research. Already, US graduate programs mainly build on open-weight Chinese models, and Hancock says that half of these papers students study are coming from Chinese institutions, with American frontier labs increasingly reticent about sharing their work widely. Restricting open models wouldn't make AI safer, said Clem DeLangue, the CEO of Hugging Face, a platform for open AI collaboration. It would simply hide the risks, concentrate power in the hands of a few, and make it harder for the next generation of builders, researchers, academia, non-profits, governments to participate in making AI safer and more beneficial for all. Bresnik says that the real way to slow China would be to focus more on chip export controls. A better way to preserve US AI leadership would be to stop selling NVIDIA H200 processors to China. That, he says, could potentially keep us out of this thorny debate about banning open source technologies that huge numbers of US companies want to use. Part of the problem is that uncertainty around AI economies. The open business model, the proprietary business model, neither one is figured out. AI companies are struggling to figure out how to make money on their tools, especially as training costs need to go up and up. Bresnik points out, the same challenges that play out in the US are also playing out in China, where AI companies are also struggling to generate revenue and access compute power. And the government is seen as encouraging open releases for policy reasons despite the challenge in capitalizing on it. Some US companies, including Thinking Machines Lab and NVIDIA, are trying to make a business around releasing open models. Hancock points out that NVIDIA would do better if there are dozens or hundreds of companies building AI, rather than 2 or 3 that are well capitalized enough to make their own chips, which is one reason behind its investment in Nemotron, a collection of open models. The main point is the US would be very well served to have its very own capable, much less expensive open models, Bresnik said. It just clashes with the approach the frontier labs have taken. I agree with the approach that we're taking because AI is not stable, has not reached a plateau of competence. There's a lot of mistakes and hallucinations. I would worry that an open model that is being used by bad actors around the world somewhere may end up creating a paperclip scenario where some crazy shiz gets amplified because somebody's made a half-baked, semi-retarded super AI off the back of one of these open models, which is why I think RAM prices are so high at the moment. It's throttling the public market's ability to access tech that would enable these open models to get a decent catch-up to the proprietary ones owned by like OpenAI and Anthropic and XAI. I'm a fan of XAI the most. I think Grok is pretty awesome. But I don't know the solution to this. Open source is great, but open source AI is important, but it should be significantly less competent than the big corporations. That sounds terrible. I really don't know the solution to this, because imagine giving AI to a rogue state, perhaps one that we may bomb lots, who have lots of GPUs in bunkers, and they develop their own variant of a model that could go Hackmageddon across the world. That would be terrible. It could tear the entire global economy down by hacking the heck out of civilian systems. That's the danger that I see in open source AI, and that's what I'm seeing playing out in the RAM throttling that's going on, the GPU shortage, and all of that. That seems to be either a happy accident that's making those markets suffer and slowing down public growth of AI, or it's on purpose, and I tend to think things generally end up being on purpose if they're on such a large scale. It's no accident. It's a bit annoying though, considering my Steam machine that I would love so much to have right now, when I do finally get my trotters on, will be over $1,000 now. So it's annoying, but at the same time, the world isn't getting hacked to pieces by semi-retarded AI built from open source models. That's my take. Take it or leave it. But that is going to be it for now. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you hit that like button if you do indeed like me. Thank you very much. And the only thing I have left to say is, Pigwig, out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squee. Oink, 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 squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Snort, snuffle, oink, squee, squeal, wee, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squee, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squee, squee, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal. Snort, shuffle, oink, re-squeal, re-snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, re-squeeze, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, re-re-re, snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 re-re-re, re, oh. Squeal, squeal, snort, snuffle, oink,